At the class reunion, he had achieved success and fame and came with his beautiful girlfriend. She said, "If you hadn't let go back then, you would be the wife of the Angus family group now." He sat across from me, hugging his girlfriend, with a cold expression. Those are all things of the past. The others, not afraid of causing trouble, all cheered and egged on. Under his gaze, I silently covered the scar on my wrist and forced a smile. Yes, the two of us have nothing to do with each other for a long time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I remember it was Charlotte who broke up with you. Right. While his girlfriend was in the restroom, the classmates started gossiping. Charlotte is me. Benedict sat across from me, with a faint smile on his lips, but his eyes were extremely cold. This was the first time we had met after breaking up 6 years ago. Everything was a bit unexpected. I only came because the class monitor said Benedict wouldn't be here. I didn't expect to meet him here. Now, Benedict has achieved success and fame. He is an outstanding young entrepreneur in the city and a returnee talent. He is dressed in a suit, with a handsome appearance. The watch on his wrist alone is worth a fortune. Everyone fawns over and respects him. In contrast, I am not as good as before. It was indeed her who initiated the breakup. Benedict answered the others' questions calmly. Everyone had their own speculations. It was nothing more than that I was materialistic, couldn't stand the hardship, bet on the wrong person, and lost everything. Charlotte, I heard that the guy you were with later got imprisoned. Right. You even took on his debts. Are you here to ask for money at this class reunion? Amidst everyone's sarcasm, Benedict's calm and deep eyes remained fixed on me. Without saying a word, I smiled awkwardly and didn't answer. The door was pushed open, and Benedict's girlfriend came back in. Sensing the strange atmosphere, she asked with a smile, "What happened while I was gone?" Benedict, who had been silent before, gently took her hand in a warm manner. "It's nothing. We were just reminiscing about the old days." She calmly took her seat, her gaze fixed on me. A dimple appeared at the corner of her mouth as she smiled. "Benedict told me about you. If you hadn't let go back then, you would be the wife of the Angus family group now." Many people's eyes showed schadenfreude. Back then, the Charlotte family was extremely prosperous. Wherever I went, I was surrounded and admired. This jealousy wouldn't fade away with time. Instead, it would become the reason for them to kick me when I was down many years later. Benedict broke the awkwardness with a cold and irresistible voice. "Those are all things of the past." Everyone fell silent, understanding that the big shot didn't want to continue this topic, and they started talking about other things. His girlfriend toasted me. "Thank you for the favor of letting go. You must come to our wedding." I silently covered the scar on my wrist and numbly said, "Congratulations. Why didn't you explain it clearly to him?" On the phone, my best friend Emily was speaking up for me. The class reunion ended early. Wrapped in a coat, I stood in the cold wind, exhaled a puff of hot air, and said, "He has a girlfriend now." There was a pause on the other end of the phone. "He has a girlfriend." Emily couldn't believe it. Yeah, the classmates left in groups. The light from the street lamps reflected on the snow, looking like broken glass. "It's a pity that you finally met him after trying so hard for so long. Emily, no one will always be waiting for you in the same place. Some words, if not said at that time, will be of no use other than causing disgust if said later." The cold wind made my eyes cold and painful. I blinked my sore eyes and said, "I give up." Even though I had tried so hard for so many years, struggled out of the quagmire, and wanted to meet him in the most decent way, it was already too late. "Okay, then let's talk when you come back." The temperature before the spring festival had dropped below zero, and it was difficult to get a taxi. After standing for a while, my hands were frozen stiff. My phone showed that I was still in the queue. There was the clicking sound of high heels coming from behind, accompanied by a woman's gentle voice. "Benedict, the snow is really beautiful. It's cold outside. Go to the car first. I'll come over later." Benedict's voice was very distinctive. "Then hurry up." When the woman passed by me, she gave me a meaningful look. Then she walked towards a short distance away and opened the car door. Her movement just exposed the bracelet on her wrist, which was particularly dazzling. That was the family heirloom of the Angus family. It used to be on my wrist. When we broke up, I asked someone to return it to Benedict. So she was not just a girlfriend but also a fiancée. The crowd had all left, and only he and I were left. The taxi I called hadn't arrived yet. Benedict always stood behind me, without saying a word. The two of us were silent like this, and there were two overlapping shadows under the street lamp. My thoughts were in a trance and went back to that year. On the night we broke up, Benedict had a car accident on his way to meet me. His brother called, with an unfriendly tone. Brother Fu is in the hospital. Is he in danger of losing his life? Wouldn't you come if he wasn't? Please take good care of him. Charlotte. He got the quota to study abroad. He will surely make a success of himself sooner or later. You. Why can't you wait a little longer? Do you need money that badly? You can't pay back in several lifetimes what he has done for you. Have you forgotten all of it? His brother almost broke down on the phone and was on the verge of calling me an ungrateful person. The phone was suddenly snatched away from him, and it was slammed down. It could be said that I left him behind. It was normal for him to hate me. How much do you owe? Benedict pulled me out of my memories with a cold tone. It has nothing to do with you. I took a breath of cold air. My throat, which had been irritated by the wine, hurt, and I suddenly started coughing. The cold air cut through my trachea, causing intense pain. I bent over, holding onto the street lamp post. The wine I had drunk began to churn in my stomach, making me cough until tears streamed down my face. Benedict stood beside me, watching coldly. The taxi slowly stopped in front of me. The driver stuck his head out and asked, "Are you going to River Mansion?" Yes. I braced myself on my knees, stood up, and took a breath to open the car door. Suddenly, someone grabbed my arm and dragged me over. I accidentally bumped into Benedict's arms. He asked, "What are you going there for?" River Mansion is a wealthy neighborhood, and it doesn't let people in easily. I carelessly tried to push Benedict's hand away, but he grabbed my wrist in return. His burning body temperature touched my skin and spread to my heart. I struggled a couple of times but couldn't break free. Looking up at Benedict's dark and unreadable face, I said, "What do you want to say, Mr. Benedict?" He pursed his lips. His black eyes were deep and calm, and it was hard to see his emotions. The cold wind howled and messed up my hair. I raised the corners of my mouth and said what he was thinking. You, like others, think the money I earn is not clean, right? Is $50,000 a month enough? Benedict interrupted me with a cold face. What do you mean? Finally, a layer of mockery appeared in Benedict's eyes. Aren't you short of money? $50,000. $100,000. If it's not enough, you can name your price. I suddenly raised my hand, and a loud slap resounded through the night. A clear handprint appeared on Benedict's face. A woman's scream came from a distance. She opened the car door and rushed out. Live your life well and don't meddle too much. I left this sentence and got in the car and left. You hit him. Emily poured me a cup of hot water. Yeah, he wanted to keep me as his mistress. I curled up on the sofa, enduring the waves of stomach cramps, and slowly drank the water. After a while, I suddenly turned around and ran to the toilet to vomit. Emily patted my back. You have a bad stomach but still drink alcohol. I took a few breaths, wiped off the water stains on my lips after rinsing. My esophagus was burning. Is it worth it to like someone for so many years? I looked up and stared at myself in the mirror with wet eyelashes. My black hair was wet and stuck to my forehead, and my face was a bit pale. Emily's complaints came from far away, and I couldn't hear them clearly. If you hadn't broken up with him so heartlessly, where would he be today? I thought of Benedict's fiancée again. Compared to me, she had a radiance and brightness. Vaguely, I remembered that I was like that many years ago. It's just that I fell so miserably later. By the time I climbed out of the gutter, everything had changed. When Emily finished her work at Mansion, we held hands and walked on the way back to the rental house. I suddenly received a call from Benedict's brother. Charlotte, if you're in trouble, I can arrange a job for you. I didn't say anything and waited for him to continue. They're getting married next month. Charlie is a nice person, and her family background is not bad. I won't bother him anymore. Don't worry. He was silent for a while and then made a futile explanation. We just want Benedict to have a better life. Yeah, all my friends back then, without exception, stood on Benedict's side. After the call ended, Emily's eyes turned red. They don't understand anything. It doesn't matter. Since I still had to stay here for a while, I found a job not far from home. During the interview, the HR asked suspiciously, "You had depression." It was in the past. I'm better now, and I have a certificate issued by a doctor. Several previous companies rejected me during the background check because of this reason. This company was relatively small. That night, I received a notice of employment. I thought that the class reunion would be my last encounter with Benedict. Unexpectedly, 3 days later, Benedict suddenly joined our company and became my boss. And my workstation was moved to the door of Benedict's office. I refuse. Sure. Benedict didn't even look up and said coldly, "Submit your resignation report to the HR department." I laughed out of anger. "Just because I don't agree to change the position, you're going to fire me." He paused his pen tip and finally deigned to look up and talk to me. "I'm just giving you a choice. Do you think I have some ulterior motive for you?" I was at a loss for words. Remembering that Emily had argued with others just for a little rent last night, I forced a smile and said, "Mr. Benedict is noble-minded. Naturally, I'm not afraid." Benedict nodded slightly. "Thank you. Close the door when you go out. Also, turn the chair so that your back is facing me. I don't want to see your face." In the following days, we hardly had any interaction. A week later, there was a company team-building activity. Since I was a newcomer, I was forced to drink a lot of alcohol. "Charlotte, if you don't drink, your salary will be deducted. Don't worry, if you get drunk, we'll take you back. We're all women. What are you afraid of?" The manager smiled and persuaded me to drink. Amidst the jeers of the crowd, I drank the last glass of the night and fell unconscious on the table. The next day, I woke up on a large bed. The bright sunlight was too dazzling to open my eyes. I sat up, and the quilt slipped off, revealing the soft bathrobe wrapped around me. I was stunned for a moment and then got up and walked out. In the bright living room, Benedict was sitting with his legs crossed, reading the morning newspaper, also wearing a hotel bathrobe. When he saw me come out, he lifted his eyes and glanced at me lightly. "You're awake. The breakfast is on the table. Go back to sleep after you eat." A sense of horror swept over my body, and my face turned pale. Benedict casually threw the morning newspaper on the coffee table, slightly opened his collar, revealing ambiguous hickeys. "Unfortunately, you were the one who took the initiative last night." I was struck as if by lightning. I had a complete blank of the memory of last night. "It's impossible." Benedict placed a contract in front of me, with my fingerprint on it. The general content was that I would be his mistress, and he would pay me $100,000 a month as compensation. "This can't be my fingerprint. Is that so?" Benedict chuckled. "Are you sure?" Facing his serious and calm gaze, I opened my mouth but didn't say a word, ignoring my unease. He took out a voice recorder. "I accidentally recorded your monologue last night. Miss Charlotte, do you want to hear your despicable thoughts?" I shuddered all over and felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. A huge sense of shame swept over me. I felt ashamed even when I hid these thoughts. Now that they were said out loud and used as evidence, it was like I had committed a crime. Benedict lowered his eyebrows and eyes, and it was hard to see the emotions in his eyes. "Coveting a married man. TSK. Charlotte, what do you think if I play this recording for others to hear?" I clenched my hands tightly, and my nails dug into my palms. "Are you taking revenge on me?" "Yes," he answered casually. "You didn't want me to have a good life back then. Why should I let you have a good life? Two choices. Either fulfill the contract or I'll make the recording public." The clock in the corner ticked, and along with the sound of my heartbeat, it hit my eardrums one by one. My lips were dry and cracked. I numbly looked up. "Then make it public." Under his cold gaze, I said numbly, "Benedict, I won't be a mistress." Benedict stared at me seriously and smiled. "Charlotte, who do you think you are? Do you still have the right to choose?" I found my messy clothes in the bathroom, and Benedict's clothes were neatly draped on the hanger at the door, clearly separated. The scene in front of me stung my eyes. I sighed and silently changed my clothes and walked out of the hotel. Emily called, her tone difficult. "Charlotte, they want $500,000. The sky was gray, and the sun couldn't be seen. In order to treat my illness, Emily didn't save much money, and my savings were also pitifully small. They said that if we don't give the money, they'll expose your affairs, and they won't tell you where Auntie's relics and ashes are either. I'll try to advance part of my salary and borrow some from others. I should be able to gather the money next month." "Okay." After much hesitation, I dialed a number. It took a while for the other side to answer. "Miss Charlotte, is there anything I can do for you?" I exhaled a puff of air and said, "Dr. Edison, I'm sorry to bother you." It seemed that Edison was very busy. After several twists and turns, he finally reached a quiet place and patiently asked, "Are you in trouble?" I took a deep breath. "Can you lend me $400,000? This was the first time I had ever borrowed money from someone. After I said it, my whole body felt like it was on fire. There was suddenly a commotion on the other side. Dr. Edison, there's an emergency surgery. Got it. I didn't have high hopes either and was prepared for him to hang up the phone directly. At the last moment, Edison briefly said, "Send me your bank card number. I'll transfer the money to you today." After that, the phone call ended. The sky was still overcast and gray. The cold beeping sound of the phone suddenly seemed to carry some warmth. In the evening, the manager knocked on my desk. "We're having dinner with clients tonight. You're coming with us." A few hours ago, I had just advanced 1 month's salary from him, adding the borrowed money and my previous savings. I barely managed to scrape together $500,000. When I walked into the private room, I saw Benedict. I watched that tall figure greeting everyone with ease. The light refracted by the crystal chandelier outlined his handsome profile. The manager gently pushed me forward. Suddenly, all eyes were on me. "Mr. Benedict, is this person from your company?" Benedict glanced casually and smiled. "Yes, a new employee." "What kind of new employee requires Mr. Benedict to bring along personally?" "She has a nice appearance." During the small talk, everyone took their seats. The manager arranged for me to sit next to Benedict and whispered, "Be smart tonight. Block the alcohol when you need to." The others asked subtly, "Mr. Benedict, can this new employee of yours drink or not?" Before Benedict could answer, the manager quickly replied, "She can drink. She can drink." After that, he pushed a wine glass in front of me. "Make a toast first." Benedict smiled but remained silent, gently tapping on the table. I picked up the wine glass, held my breath, and drank it all in one gulp. The pungent wine rushed recklessly into my esophagus, igniting a fire all the way and churning in my stomach. Everyone cheered, just as they were about to continue pressing me to drink. Benedict spoke up and changed the topic. "Where were we just now? Let's continue." During the meal, the atmosphere was lively. Many people wanted to toast Benedict, but he used the excuse of having a bad stomach and didn't drink a single sip. In the end, the manager found ways to pour all the wine into my stomach. Finally, I couldn't hold on any longer and went to the restroom. The faucet at the sink was turned on. I kept retching, and my hair became loose, falling into the sink. In a short while, it got wet. After sending a text message to Emily, I completely ran out of strength. I lowered my head and lay on the sink, breathing heavily with my eyes closed. There were unhurried footsteps outside the door. The door was pushed open. I thought it was some woman coming to use the restroom. Unexpectedly, Benedict's voice came, calm in tone. "Can't you hold on already?" I gathered my strength, propped myself up, and staggered to move aside and walk out. But Benedict grabbed my arm and dragged me back. His big hand stroked the back of my neck. It was scorching hot. "Let go of me." The stomach acid had corroded my throat, and I felt pain with every word I said. Benedict easily dragged me in front of the mirror, made me face the mirror, lifted my chin, and sneered. "Take a good look at yourself. Going out in this state, aren't you afraid of being targeted by someone with ulterior motives?" In the mirror, my eyes were moist, my cheeks were flushed, my hair was messy and hanging by my ears, and my collar was open. Benedict looked at my body through the mirror with his deep eyes, without any restraint. I closed my eyes and trembled slightly all over. "Who else could have more ulterior motives than you?" Benedict chuckled and kissed my ear. "Come back with me tonight." "Okay. Get lost." He mercilessly blocked my mouth, wantonly squeezing the oxygen out of my lungs. Under the effect of the alcohol, my blood was like boiling magma, crashing wildly through my body. The light blurred into a mass, and the water droplets seemed to be separated by a layer of film. Drop by drop, it was like sulfuric acid dripping onto my heart. It made me feel miserable. I broke out in a cold sweat and feebly slapped at him. It was as if I was dragged back to those dark days. I stared at this colorful world in despair, feeling out of place with them. "Benedict, can you let me go?" I was falling silently, crashing hard into the bottom of the well. It was probably painful, but I couldn't feel it anymore. "Charlotte," Benedict was calling me, no longer with that look as if he wished I were dead. He was panicked, so much so that I couldn't tell whether the person in front of me was the young him or the current him. I said, "Benedict, I never want to see you again." This high fever came on fiercely. My consciousness was hazy, and my whole body ached terribly. I curled up in the quilt and kept shivering. The north wind howled outside the window. In a daze, I dreamed of that year. I lay on Benedict's back and asked, "Benedict, what if I die?" He carried me steadily forward and coaxed me softly. "Don't talk nonsense. It's just a fever. You'll be fine after getting the injection. Hey, is your living expense enough? The injection is very expensive." "It doesn't matter." "How can it not matter? How many part-time jobs are you doing?" Benedict didn't answer. He put me down at the nurse's station, squatted in front of me, and said seriously, "As long as you're safe and sound, it doesn't matter what happens to me." I curled up in the thick down jacket and said hesitantly, "When Mom and Dad stop arguing, I'll ask them for the living expense to pay you back." Benedict stroked my hair, his eyes gentle. "Trust me, we'll have money in the future." But I didn't stay safe and sound as he hoped. On the night Benedict went to another province to participate in a competition. When I got home, I pushed open my parents' bedroom door. My father was shielding another woman in his arms. My glamorous life started to crumble from that moment. Then came the intense quarrels between my parents. My father left without saying goodbye, and the Charlotte family was deeply in debt. One late at night, those middle-aged men who came to collect the debt knocked on the door. The swaying light overhead, the men's excited shouts, the dull pain on my skin and the disgusting touch, as well as my mother's heartrending curses, mixed together like a mess and churned in my mind. The scene was like pressing the fast-forward button. My mother was driven to death in the bathtub by the creditors. Emily found me half-naked and took me to the distant South City. On a rainy and gloomy day, I curled up in the corner of the hospital, wearing mourning clothes and looking disheveled. "She has a family history of hereditary depression. Does she have any other relatives?" Emily looked at me worriedly. "She has a boyfriend who is participating in a competition in another place. Inform him to come here." The doctor's words, mixed with some professional terms. "She has an obvious suicidal tendency now, and the treatment is very difficult. She can't be left alone for several years. The family members should be prepared for a long-term battle." At that time, my mental state couldn't support me to call the police, collect evidence, and seek justice. Emily and I were like two homeless dogs. We fled the place where we had grown up, leaving everything behind. On the same day, on the list of award winners of the competition, Benedict's name was the first. He got the quota to study abroad. He called. When I picked up the phone, there was the howling wind on the other side. "Charlotte." Benedict's voice was extremely gentle. "I lived up to your expectations. In 3 years, I'll marry you." I looked at the slowly closing iron gate and could no longer find my way home. "Benedict, I might not be able to be with you anymore." I held back my sobs, and tears quietly fell. He held his breath. "Why?" I opened my mouth, and at that moment, I hesitated. His future was bright. Did I really want to selfishly trap Benedict's entire later life in the rainy South City? Outside the window, a girl was crying bitterly through the fence. The boy's face showed a sad numbness and disgust. I saw how love disappeared from his eyes, which was despairing. The wind blew up my hair, revealing the dark blue bite marks and pinch marks under my neck. I wiped away my tears and said, "Benedict, take care of yourself. Let's just end it." There was the ticking sound of the medical equipment in my ear. The setting sun shone through the gaps in the blinds and fell on the sofa not far away, like a layer of beautiful gold dust. I blinked, and the nightmare gradually faded away. I sat up. A man was sitting on the sofa, quietly peeling an apple with his head lowered. His fair and slender fingers were very dexterous. In a short while, a whole apple appeared, round and clean. It was Benedict. He heard the movement, looked up, met my gaze, silently stood up, and pressed the bell. The doctor quickly came in, shone a light on my pupils, and after confirming that I was okay, turned to Benedict and said, "She can't keep up with her nutrition in her daily diet. You can focus on supplementing some protein." Benedict nodded. "Thank you." The door closed. He walked to the bedside and handed me the apple. "Don't think about anything. Just focus on getting better." I didn't take it. Instead, I got out of bed and rummaged through the cabinet on my own. My phone was gone, and there were no clothes to wear outside. He let me rummage around in the ward. "Benedict, what do you want to do?" I stood barefoot on the ground. A beam of sunlight shone in, and my pale and haggard face was reflected on the glass. "Don't you know what I want to do?" Benedict placed the apple on the bedside table, took out a tissue, and slowly wiped his hands clean. "I want you." He sat in the light, his black eyes staring at me without any concealment. His gaze was burning hot and humiliating. I trembled and clenched my hands tightly. Benedict, you can't treat me like this. Benedict stood up and took 2 or 3 steps to come in front of me. He looked down at me and smoothed my hair for me. Why not? I have someone I like. Please stop pestering me. Is that so? There was not a trace of a smile on Benedict's face. He held my face in his hands, lowered his head, and when his lips were just 1 centimeter away from mine, he stopped. I couldn't break free from him. The moment I turned my head aside, I closed my eyes, and my body uncontrollably shuddered. Benedict smiled, and his cold voice poured into my ears. Charlotte, you're lying. The private hospital was located in the suburbs, and outside the window was an endless stretch of woods. I couldn't get out, and I couldn't contact anyone either. I once tried to ask the doctors and nurses for help, but they said they were powerless. Benedict came every day. Most of the time, it was in the evening. He would arrive in a hurry and talk to me for a while. I was very resistant to his affectionate gestures, and Benedict didn't force me. Recently, I always dreamed of the past. At that time, I used to talk about Benedict's name all day long. I said, Benedict, you will definitely become rich and successful in the future. Benedict sighed silently. What flavor of milk do you want today? Banana flavor. As a result, in order to buy me banana milk, the top student Benedict skipped class for the first time and was caught by the teacher. Later, when we went to university, rumors about him and the school beauty started to spread on campus. I took the subway for more than a dozen stops and sat downstairs in the boys' dormitory crying. Benedict put on his clothes in the middle of the night, rushed downstairs in a hurry, and gently wiped away my tears. Stop crying. If you want me, I'm yours. From now on, there will only be you. This isn't how a confession should be. He was taken aback, then hugged me tightly. I love you. At that time, we probably couldn't have guessed that more than 10 years later, it would be like this. Tomorrow, I'm getting married. The setting sun hadn't set yet outside the window, and the remaining warmth was still there. Benedict's voice pulled my distant thoughts back. Do you have anything to say to me? I held a half glass of milk and stared blankly at his face. I suddenly understood why I had been dreaming so frequently recently. I was saying goodbye to the past Charlotte and Benedict. Every day on TV, there were news about him and Charlie. They were a perfect match. A golden couple. That was the future we had once hoped for. But now, Charlotte was burdened with a mess of debts. What right did I have? Congratulations, I said. Have a baby soon. Benedict's hand that was peeling the apple paused. The blade rubbed against his finger pad, and blood quickly seeped out. He was stunned for a moment, took out a tissue to press on it, and then smiled with his head lowered. It doesn't matter. She and I are just going through the motions. Do you want a child? I have no objections. Benedict, let's just end it like this. Okay. I suddenly felt very tired. Let's all be decent. Benedict stopped peeling the apple. He threw the things back into the fruit basket and stared at me fiercely, with a sneer on his face. Just end it like this. Why should I? You were the one who started it. In the end, you said you were bored and left without a care. Then what am I? A dog. I closed my eyes and dispelled the halo of the sun in my eyes. Then I'll pay you back. Benedict froze. What did you say? I looked at the setting sun that was about to set. If you don't want me to have a good life, I can die. Suddenly, my chin was grabbed and turned. I met Benedict's eyes filled with anger. Charlotte, are you crazy? If you want to die so much, why didn't you die back then? I couldn't remember when he left. That night, Benedict's brother, Gabriel, who was also my friend from many years ago, pushed the door open and barged in. Charlotte, what did you promise me? His sudden questioning left me stunned. Do you know how much Benedict will lose if he breaks off the engagement? You're already an adult. Can't you stop being as willful as you were back then and let Benedict take care of everything for you? Can't you think about him? What's going on? What's going on? Gabriel laughed angrily and roared at me. Benedict is going to break off the engagement because of you. And you're asking me what's going on. My ears were buzzing. I sat there blankly, my mind completely blank. He openly broke off the engagement. Where did that put me? A mistress who destroys other people's families. Gabriel forcefully dragged me out of bed. Come with me. Weren't you good at it back then? When you got bored. When you had a new love. You had so many excuses. Just say one of them. Gabriel. Charlotte. Gabriel was shaking with anger. Would all these things have happened if you hadn't come back? The roar echoed in the wind and snow. The north wind howled, freezing all my senses. My ears were buzzing, and I couldn't hear anything. His eyes showed a hatred I had never seen before. It was as if I deserved to die like this. Gabriel. He won't let me go. Gabriel's face turned cold. After this is done, I'll send you away. The office building was brightly lit late at night. Gabriel dragged me in. Unfortunately, the press conference had already started. Benedict sat calmly under the spotlight. I heard that the reason for your broken engagement is the interference of a third party. Facing the reporter's question, he was at ease. We broke up peacefully. Gabriel's face turned pale with anger. He tightly pinched my wrist, not allowing me to move around. But according to informed sources, you have rekindled your old relationship with your first love. Benedict was calm and composed. Those are just rumors. If there are no other questions, today's press conference ends here. The moment he stood up, suddenly someone shouted, "She's here. It's her." All the cameras in the room instantly turned towards us. I was exposed under the spotlight, looking disheveled and stunned. Reporters swarmed in, and in just a few seconds, I was surrounded tightly. One question after another came. What's your relationship with Benedict? Did you really interfere in someone else's marriage? The sound of shutters clicking came one after another. Benedict's smile suddenly froze, and he got up, pushed through the crowd, and walked towards me. No, I didn't, I argued feebly. But my voice was soon overwhelmed by their strong curiosity, and the questions kept coming. There's new breaking news, a reporter shouted in excitement, holding up his phone. My voice came from it, with a sobbing tone and a hazy drunkenness, like a murmur. Benedict, I love you. It was the voice recorder. I felt a sense of unease in my heart. I once thought that nothing could make my life worse. When this storm truly came, I was completely destroyed. Isn't this a mistress? Shameless. The whispers of the crowd were like slaps in the face. The color drained from my face instantly, and the recording nailed me firmly to the pillar of shame. Sorry. Gabriel, take her away. Benedict pushed through the crowd, and for the first time, a flustered expression appeared on his face. My vision went blank. I only heard someone reading word by word. Her father owed debts. Her mother committed suicide, and she herself suffers from severe hereditary depression in the family. She was locked up in a psychiatric hospital in South City for 5 years. Isn't she a mentally ill person? A single stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The crowd was in an uproar. What's a mentally ill person doing out here to cause trouble? She's crazy. Why doesn't she just die? Benedict stopped in his tracks, suddenly raised his eyes, and looked at me, shocked, stunned, incredulous. I sat helplessly in the noisy crowd, and my blood gradually grew cold until my whole body was chilled to the bone. Charlotte. Benedict was calling me, his voice trembling. I knew what was coming next. I was just waiting calmly for the guillotine to fall and completely destroy my life. She was also violated. This was the last sentence of the anonymous exposure. The moment he heard it, Benedict's face turned as pale as paper. Benedict's perspective. Since that day, when he came back from the company, Benedict hadn't said a word. The blinds had been closed for 3 days, and the light couldn't squeeze into the dim room. The missed calls on his phone occupied the screen. He didn't even click on one of them. Time seemed to have pressed the pause button on him. Benedict sat there with his head down, lifeless. He still remembered the cold tone of the man when he took Charlotte away. He said, "All of us were hoping she would live." Mr. Fu truly lives up to his reputation of being ruthless. Without much effort, he can make all our efforts go to waste. Emily was blocked outside by the security guards and shouted at him, "Benedict, do you know that she'll have a relapse if she doesn't take her medicine? What's the difference between locking her up and killing her? Depression. Psychiatric hospital." These words were like countless sharp thorns, wantonly churning in his mind and tugging hard at his nerves. Gabriel knocked on the door and finally pushed it open a crack. Standing at the door, he said, "Brother, are you feeling any better?" "Why?" Benedict's voice was hoarse, and the dull pain in his chest made him feel miserable. Gabriel was silent for a moment. "Sorry, I thought there was no need to investigate." "So, the information was fake, wasn't it?" Benedict's voice was very soft. "Gabriel, when you told me she had changed several boyfriends abroad, Charlotte was actually locked up in a psychiatric hospital in South City." "Sorry, brother, I didn't know." This explanation was pale and powerless. He knew he couldn't blame Gabriel entirely. Maybe if he had asked a little more, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Benedict didn't have the energy to listen to Gabriel's defense. Emily pushed the door open and entered despite the secretary's obstruction. The blinding light made Benedict squint his eyes, but he didn't stop her. The secretary apologized repeatedly. Sorry, Mr. Benedict. I couldn't stop her. Go out, Benedict said. The secretary carefully closed the door for them, and the room returned to darkness. Emily just stood there, seemingly not wanting to have anything to do with him. Mr. Benedict, there are some things I can say now. A small crack was opened in the window, and the cold wind was bone-chilling. Benedict sat there without moving, just listening quietly. When you do something wrong, you will always be punished, sooner or later. Last year, when Charlotte celebrated her birthday, I once joked and asked her who she liked the most in the world. She said the first was her mother, and the second was Benedict. Benedict closed his eyes, feeling that this sentence made him cold to the bone. At that time, she had just recovered from her illness. She only needed to take a small pill every day to be like a normal person. So this year, in order to sort out Auntie's belongings, I brought her back. Emily's eyes were red. She always said that the breakup back then was too disgraceful. This time, she wanted to meet you properly, or even just take a distant look at her entrepreneur. That would be enough, because she knew she didn't deserve you anymore. Benedict, doesn't she deserve you? Do you know how the competition qualification was obtained? Benedict's hand slowly tightened, as if he could see the truth that was enough to crush him. It was already predetermined at that time. It was Charlotte who wrote the letter of complaint, demanding fairness and openness, that the quota fell on you. But correspondingly, she offended a lot of people. So later, after her father ran away, she and her mother were harassed by many people. That invisible big hand choked Benedict's neck, and he couldn't breathe from the pain. She had been bullied. Was it because of this? Emily continued. At that time, you were participating in a competition in another province and probably didn't call back for about a week. So you should have no idea that everything here had turned upside down. The Charlotte family collapsed. Her father ran away with his mistress, and a bunch of debt collectors blocked the door every day, wanting the lives of Charlotte and her mother. Auntie committed suicide, leaving Charlotte to be bullied, and then she had a relapse. At the worst time, I didn't dare to take my eyes off her for even a second. She was tortured beyond recognition at that time. Emily stared at Benedict fiercely. When you had the car accident, Charlotte cried and begged me to let her die. How could she move on? Benedict's face was ashen, and he closed his eyes. The memories of the past few months had been torturing him mercilessly. He had acquiesced in the manager getting Charlotte drunk and sending her to his room. He had lured her to reveal her true feelings after she was drunk and had even insanely forged a fake agreement that had no legal effect, just to see her torn and painful expression. He had humiliated and teased her again and again. Finally, he had stubbornly locked her up in a private hospital in the suburbs. Emily had come to see him many times, but he had refused to meet her. He had asked her if she was crazy and why she didn't die back then. Charlotte's eyes had gradually become empty, and she often stared at him without moving. He had mistakenly thought that she still loved him at that time, but now that he thought about it, Charlotte had been silently questioning how he could treat her so heartlessly. Why didn't you tell me? Emily burst into tears. How could I explain? She was ill, and staying alive was a luxury for her. The only thing she could do was to prevent the people she cared about from being dragged down by her. She valued your studies more than anything else. That competition was your chance to turn things around. An opportunity she fought so hard for. She just wanted you to be okay. Benedict, does she deserve to die? Does she deserve to die? This sentence was like a heavy hammer, hitting Benedict's heart hard. It was him who had pestered her, tortured her, and laughed at her. It was him who knew she was educated and used the contract to insult her. It was also him who deserved to die. We tried many ways to make Charlotte want to live. In the end, we found that only one thing worked for her. Benedict suddenly didn't dare to listen anymore. Emily smiled bitterly and said, "Your name." She always remembers her entrepreneur. When I left at that time, I joked with Emily that I would never come back to this place. It turned out that you shouldn't make promises lightly. I was ill again. Only in winter is it a bit drier in South City. In previous years, it always rained freezing rain. But this year, it unexpectedly snowed. When the doctors and nurses were chatting, they said, "It's a cold winter this year. TSK. The Earth's climate is becoming less and less suitable for human survival." It was almost the spring festival. The branches outside the window were bare, with not a single leaf left. I pressed my face against the window glass, and my breath created a layer of mist. There's a person downstairs. He stands there every day. Isn't he cold? Emily walked past expressionlessly, holding a cup of hot milk. Oh, really? Maybe he's not cold. She hadn't been in a good mood recently. Even Dr. Edison was the same. So I was very careful every day, afraid of making them angry. Emily paused, realizing that she seemed to have scared me, and softened her tone. Drink the milk, and take the medicine an hour later. Dr. Edison said he'll take you to build a snowman tonight. I took another look at that person and felt a bit familiar. Emily pulled the curtain for me. Stop looking. You might go blind. Okay. I went back to the bed, took the medicine, and then leaned against the pillow and played games. I heard the voices of Emily and Dr. Edison talking outside. Then, he pushed the door open and came in. I quickly hid my phone and sat up straight. I've taken the medicine. The smell of disinfectant filled the room immediately. Edison's gaze lingered on me for a while and finally settled on my face. Miss Charlotte, I won't scold you for playing games. I blushed deeply and slowly took out my phone. How did you know I was playing games? I play too, and I'm familiar with the background music. Edison washed his hands, took off his white coat, and looked at me through the mirror with a slight smile. Aren't you going to get dressed? I said I'd take you to build a snowman. He was from the thoracic surgery department of the same hospital. I first met him in an autumn. The weather finally cleared up, and I squatted down to pick up a woolen ball that suddenly appeared outside the fence. Edison passed by and looked down at me. I was out of breath. Excuse me, could you pick it up for me? He looked up at the sign hanging in the yard and said, according to the regulations, you can't touch anything dangerous. Seeing that I didn't move, he asked again, what do you want to do? Play cat's cradle. Edison looked at the time, squatted down, and said, then I'll play with you. After we're done, I'll take the rope away. His lunch break was very short. I quietly reached out my hand through the fence, and we played for a while. When he was about to leave, I said, thank you. Later, I met him a few more times. He was very busy and didn't pay attention to me, until one day, he came again and took out the cat's cradle rope. Sorry, I've been too busy recently. Later, he started chatting with me. You seem to talk very little. Yeah, I can't talk too much. Why? I'm ill, and I probably can't say anything happy. I can't dump my emotional garbage on others. Edison stared at me at that time and didn't say anything. Later, he came more frequently. Sometimes he looked very tired. I tried to learn a few jokes and tell them to him. Every time, Edison would look at me gently. He asked, Charlotte, what's your wish? I hope everyone is happy, including myself. I quickly put on all my gear. When Edison put on his down jacket, he took my hand and we went downstairs. There was an access control every few steps here. Only he could take me out. Under the night sky, the snow was falling thick and fast, and my hat soon turned white. Edison handed me a small shovel. Do your best. Okay. The cold air somehow made me feel very happy. I carried the shovel and walked around the frozen fountain. When I turned around, I suddenly saw Benedict standing not far away. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a thick stubble on his chin. He was just looking at me. Benedict. My voice was very soft, and I was a bit surprised. Benedict's lips moved. Charlotte, I was wrong. In the past, I would have asked proudly and arrogantly, what were you wrong about? Now, I just held the snow shovel and lowered my head a bit awkwardly. It's okay. I had gone through so much suffering that my edges and corners had long been worn away. The wind and snow howled in the dark night. Benedict slowly walked closer, squatted in front of me, and his voice was hoarse. How can it be okay? Charlotte, please say something to me. Okay. I thought about it and said seriously, I wish us good health in the new year. At that moment, the color drained from Benedict's face. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he trembled. Don't treat me like this, please. I touched his face. It was very cold. So, just like back then, I held his face in my hands and said seriously, I originally wanted to meet you in a decent way, but it turned out to be a mess. Sorry, it's my fault. Benedict said, if I chose to leave your life. I can't blame anyone else. I spoke slowly and felt a bit sad. At the class reunion, I asked the monitor. I only went because you weren't there. I don't know why he lied to me. I just wanted to hear some news about you and see if you were doing well. Benedict couldn't stop crying. Sorry, it was me. I did it on purpose. Oh, I smiled, not knowing how I felt. Charlotte, I'm sorry. I wasn't there for you when you were going through the hardest times. Benedict held my hands and finally noticed the scar on my wrist. You don't have to be sorry. I didn't want to force you to stay. Many years later, if we had to live a tough life together, we might bring up the past during arguments and calculate who owed whom. I patiently removed the snowflakes from his eyelashes. Benedict, I'm truly happy to see you successful, but I said I would earn money for you to spend. Benedict held my hands. What's the point of having all those things without you? I blinked, my nose turning red from the cold. Look, my scarf cost more than $100. I have enough money to get by. The light in Benedict's eyes faded completely, and he asked tremblingly, we can't go back, can we? Benedict, you have your own life, and I have to go my own way. I won't be going back to City A. How could hurtful words be easily forgotten? Everyone has memories. I was nailed to the pillar of shame. If I went back, every step I took in the future would be like walking on the edge of a blade. It would be 10,000 times more painful than giving up a relationship. Benedict took a gentle breath, grabbed my hands, and warmed them up again, just like he used to. I'm sorry about the recording. I lured you into saying those things. I didn't touch you that night, he said. My eyes grew hot. Benedict, then apologize to me. Say you're sorry. He was in agony, greedily engraving my face into his memory as a final farewell. I'm sorry. I gently patted his shoulder, and in the end, I couldn't bring myself to say, it doesn't matter. Benedict, I hope you have a peaceful and happy rest of your life. The snow in the sky was getting heavier. I turned around, took big strides forward with all my might, and my body was swayed by the wind. The howling wind and snow behind me gradually faded away. I wasn't sure if it was the sound of the wind or Benedict's crying. Edison stood under the dim streetlight, wearing a camel-colored coat with his hands in his pockets. I could vaguely see his clear-cut eyebrows and focused gaze. I walked closer, as if he hadn't noticed anything. He asked, "What did you see?" I patted the snow off the brim of my hat and looked up, my eyes a bit red. Dr. Edison. Thank you. A few days later, I saw Benedict in the entertainment news section. He had lost a lot of weight. In the interview, he told the media everything he had done. He admitted that he had forced me, and he had also induced me to say the words on that recording. At the same time, he also revealed an agreement. The signatories were him and Charlie. They had a 2-year engagement period, and they would break up peacefully upon its expiration, achieving a win-win cooperation. The two of them hadn't actually planned to get married in the first place. That night was the day originally written in the agreement to hold a press conference and announce the termination of the engagement. This incident undoubtedly dealt a devastating blow to Benedict's company, causing his long-accumulated reputation and status to plummet. Later, Gabriel called me. He said, "I'm sorry, Charlotte. I owe you an explanation." He said he had misjudged people. Charlie had acted out of self-interest and exposed my affairs. The creditors who had blackmailed me for $500,000 before, and when I was taken to the private hospital by Benedict and they couldn't reach me, sold the information to Charlie at twice the price. He also said he was worried about Benedict's work condition and asked if I could go back. I gave the same answer. I had said everything I needed to say, and there was nothing more I could do. 3 months later, my condition stabilized, and I was about to be discharged from the hospital. The warm sunlight bathed my body, and outside the window, spring flowers were in full bloom. The familiar smell of disinfectant wafted over again. I knew Edison was coming. "Do you have anything to eat? I've been busy all day. Spare me a bite," he said. He was so busy that he often came to me for food recently. I unwrapped my woolen scarf, revealing a small, warm red bean bread. Edison took it without hesitation, tore open the packaging, and started eating heartily. I just stared at him until he asked with a smile, "Why are you looking at me like that? You are easy to feed," I said. After Edison finished eating, he asked, "Have you considered settling down here?" "Why do you ask?" "Well, I have an apartment that's currently for rent." I thought for a moment. "Are you short of money?" Because he really seemed sincere. "I don't have much income now, so I might not be able to afford expensive rent. I'm offering it at a very low price," Edison said seriously, telling a white lie. "I'm alone and I'm scared without neighbors." I blinked. It seemed like he was trying to trick me, but I wasn't sure. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, a gentle spring breeze made my heart feel joyful. A long-lost smile appeared on my face. When I was crossing the road, I forgot to look at the traffic lights and was dragged back by Edison. Who grabbed the back of my collar? I accidentally bumped into his arms. He held my hand and didn't let go. You. Yeah, I'm courting you, he said softly and casually, the corners of his lips slightly raised, as if he was just commenting on the nice weather. Bang bang. In the distance, a child was shaking a toy drum and babbling playfully. Thump thump. It was the beating of my heart. My voice was unsteady, but I still bravely looked up at Edison. I've loved someone for many, many years, and I'm not sure. The wind ruffled Edison's hair, and his eyes were gentle. Miss Charlotte, I've also loved someone for many, many years. Give me a chance. At that moment, my eyes became a bit moist. I'm not a good catch. I've been ill, and my body is also. Miss Charlotte, you once said that you hope everyone is happy, including yourself. Edison blinked. I hope your wish comes true. A gentle breeze blew. The sunlight filtered through the treetops and landed on his eyebrows. The spring that I once thought was out of reach, before I knew it, had filled the fields with blooming flowers, and the spring scenery was at its best. Benedict's perspective. In the winter of the second year, Charlie's company declared bankruptcy. The people who had bullied Charlotte before were sent to prison by Benedict. After going through several crises, Benedict's company finally managed to recover. On this day, Benedict sat alone in his office for a long time. The snow was falling heavily outside the window, and the car lights downstairs formed a continuous line. It had been half a month since he started working continuously, and it felt like a lifetime ago. He suddenly remembered that it had also snowed on this day a year ago. Charlotte had appeared at the class reunion. The moment she saw him arrive with Charlie, her eyes were filled with shock and panic. After that, he dreamed of that scene countless times. He had also made changes in his dreams countless times. He had terminated the engagement in advance and called the police when the manager drugged her. He hadn't forced her to drink alcohol, nor had he said harsh words to her. Just as Charlotte had expected, he had a decent reunion with her. Charlotte had come back, curled up in his arms at night, telling him about what had happened to her back then, and crying out of grievance. Benedict had held her, kissed her, soothed her, and proposed to her. Later, they had a home. He and Charlotte had taken wedding photos. She had smiled beautifully in the photos, her fingers intertwined with his. Every time he woke up from the dream, lying alone in bed and listening to the ticking of the pendulum, he would realize that time was moving forward. But Charlotte would never appear in the rest of his life again. She had left completely. On that snowy night in City B, Charlotte had wished him a peaceful and happy rest of his life with sincere and composed eyes. She had said she wouldn't come back. She was sad that they hadn't had a decent reunion. Her eyes were red when she spoke. Because he had hurt her, she had decided to leave. There were no words of blame or resentment. That wish for a peaceful and happy life in the future was like a gentle knife, stabbing deeply into his heart and leaving an ache that could never be erased. Due to his long-term irregular schedule, he had developed a stomach problem. When it flared up, it was excruciatingly painful. That night, he woke up from his dream again and lay on the cold bed. Outside the window, there was a crescent moon. Vaguely, he remembered that it seemed like a lifetime ago when Charlotte accompanied him to look at the moon. He suddenly missed Charlotte so much that he booked a flight to City B the next day. After a year, when he set foot in this place again, the weather was still the same. The wind was strong, and the snow was heavy. The pedestrians on the road were in a hurry. Benedict followed the address and found an apartment. As it was getting dark, the lights in the second-floor apartment didn't come on. Benedict stood in a corner and waited. Half an hour later, Charlotte's voice came, gentle and earnest. The tomato beef brisket from that restaurant isn't delicious. Next time you buy some beef brisket, and I'll make it for you. Emily likes it too. Invite her over to eat. Benedict instinctively looked over, and that familiar figure suddenly came into his sight. She was wearing a small white hat, or maybe it was a small pink or gray hat. Anyway, covered by the snow, it was all white. She had gained a bit of weight and no longer swayed unsteadily when walking in the snow. Next to her was a tall figure, wearing glasses and always looking at her gently. He raised his eyes slightly and his gaze landed on Benedict. Suddenly, he stopped moving. The two men stood there in the wind and snow, not saying a word to each other. Hey, Edison, did you hear what I said? It was still the familiar tone, but now it was directed at someone else. Edison retracted his gaze. I heard you. You want to make tomato beef brisket, but last time you burned the pot, and I haven't bought a new one yet. Charlotte hung her head dejectedly. Oh, sorry. Edison patted the hat on her head. as if patting a cute white bear. You go home first. We haven't fed our son yet. Where are you going? To buy a pot. What about the beef brisket? Buy it together. So urgent. Yeah, we're having it tonight. Charlotte trotted into the building. Only then did Edison look over. Benedict didn't know what to say, so he just said, "Congratulations." Edison smiled. "Thank you." In fact, he knew that Benedict had misunderstood. The son they mentioned was the cat he and Charlotte had adopted, but Edison didn't want to explain. When he took Charlotte downstairs to build a snowman last year, he had given Benedict a chance. Anyway, Charlotte and Benedict's relationship had ended. They should each move on and be well. Her condition, it's stable, Edison said directly. She has a good temper and doesn't get angry easily. She's a wonderful girl. Benedict knew that she was doing well, because he knew what Charlotte looked like when she was happy. Edison's gaze, through the lenses of his glasses, was sharp and scrutinizing. "Mr. Fu, how many years have you known her?" 14 years exactly. You know her better than I do. Her birthday is coming up, and I want to give her a birthday present. Snacks. Preferably puffed snacks. She doesn't like chocolate. Benedict blurted out without thinking. Edison nodded matter-of-factly. Thank you. 14 years exactly. You know her better than I do. These words showed Edison's dissatisfaction with him. If he really knew her, why did he hate Charlotte so much? Why did he make her suffer so much in the following days? Benedict. A clear voice pierced through the wind and snow. Benedict suddenly turned his head and looked over. That face he had been longing for day and night unexpectedly came into his view. Even the curve of her smile was exactly the same as in his memory. Charlotte was holding an umbrella, and she had another one in her arms. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Why are you here?" Benedict felt a pang in his heart. He saw clarity and composure in her eyes. She had already let go. He was silent for a moment and then said, "I'm here on business. I passed by and ran into Mr. Jiang. So we started chatting." Passed by the residential area. Charlotte looked a bit confused. Edison asked, "Why did you come down again?" Charlotte seemed to remember something and handed the umbrella over. "I saw that it was snowing heavily and was afraid you'd catch a cold. So I came down to give you an umbrella." When she talked to Edison, the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and her eyes were warm. This scene stung Benedict's eyes. "Would you like to come in and have a seat?" Edison asked politely. Benedict smiled. "No. I have a flight tonight. I'm in a hurry." Charlotte tightened her coat and suddenly remembered something. "Wait for me." With that, she turned around and ran into the building. Edison had an expressionless face and followed her in. Benedict waited downstairs for a while. The snow was getting heavier. The sky was overcast and gray, making his heart feel heavy. His stomach started to hurt again. Gabriel called. "Brother." He hesitated. "Your examination report is out. It's gastric cancer." Benedict stood still. He wasn't sure if he heard it or not. He looked up at the vast snow and said, "I see," and then hung up the phone. He acted as if nothing had happened and continued waiting, his gaze always fixed on the entrance of the building. A warm beam of light shone out from inside, casting a trapezoid on the snowy ground. After a while, Charlotte came down alone. Edison had wrapped her up like a cotton ball that could barely move. She was holding a small red box and walked over with difficulty, handing it to Benedict. "I baked these small cookies myself. You can take them and eat them on the way," she said. Benedict took it and suddenly remembered that Charlotte used to like baking many years ago. At that time, her baking was terrible, with a strong smell of eggs. All the failed products ended up in his stomach. Benedict calmly answered everyone's questions. Benedict also said that in the future, Charlotte was prohibited from entering the kitchen at home. In the blink of an eye, she could now bake quite well. Charlotte said sincerely, "Thank you for donating to our organization." Benedict knew that their organization was helping people with mental illnesses and those living in difficult situations. So he donated money every month, leaving only a small portion for his living expenses. Benedict said, "You're welcome." Then he stared at her face. "It's cold. You should go back. I probably won't come here again in the future." Charlotte smiled. "How could that be? We'll still need to invite you for the awards ceremony in the future." Benedict's throat felt blocked, and he didn't say anything. She turned around, and her snow boots made a creaking sound as she stepped on the snow. Just before entering the door, she turned back and called out to him, "Benedict." Benedict immediately looked up, and his heart suddenly came to life. He waited for her to say something. Then he saw Charlotte smile at him and say, Happy New Year. It was an ordinary New Year's blessing. There wasn't even a wish for health and happiness. Benedict's heart returned to silence. Standing in the cold wind, he replied, Happy New Year. The end of the full text.